Welcome to Conversations with Big Rich. This is an interview-style podcast. These interviewed are all involved in the off-road industry. Being involved, like all of my guests are, is a lifestyle, not just a job. I talk to past, present, and future legends, as well as business owners, employees, media, and land use warriors. Men and women who have found their way into this exciting and addictive lifestyle we call off-road. We discuss their personal history, struggles, successes, and reboots. We dive into what drives them to stay active in off-road. We all hope to shed some light on how to find a path into this world that we live and love and call off-road. This episode of Conversations with Big Rich is brought to you by the Off-Road Motorsports Hall of Fame. The mission of the Hall of Fame is to educate and inspire present and future generations of the off-road community by celebrating the achievements of those who came before. We invite you to help fulfill the mission of the Off-Road Motorsports Hall of Fame. Join, partner, or donate today. Legends live at ORMHOF.org. On today's episode of Conversations with Big Rich, I get to interview Vic Wilson. Vic is a 1978 ORMHOF inductee. He is, along with his teammate Ted Mangles, the winner of the very first ever Mexican 1000 in 1967. Vic is also a two-time national four-wheel drive Grand Prix champion and a two-time winner of the Mint 400. Then again, Vic won a second Mexican 1000 in 1970. I'm sure there's a lot more to this story and a lot more wins along the way. Vic, thank you so much for spending the time and talking with us today.
Sure. Thank you.
So let's start off right away. And where were you born and raised?
I was born in Glendale, California, by my midwife, my mother, and spent some of my first years in Glendale, California.
Okay. And that was in the 30s, correct?
Yes. Mid 30s.
And so you've seen a lot of history in the United States.
You have no idea.
I just turned 65, so I'm behind you by a couple of decades there, but that's a lot of history. I can't wait to get into this. With growing up in Glendale, you didn't stay there. Your dad ended up being or was a avocado grower. Is that correct?
Yes. I don't know what prompted. I was way too young. I'm 4 or 5 years old or whatever, and I don't know what prompted him to leave Glendale. But I'm sure my dad was a very, very brilliant man. He had, in fact, if you look at the Google list, he's in the Google list, Omar Wilson, for building a hand-built car way back, who knows when. But he was, unhappy with Glendale, and we moved to Vista, California, where he bought 40 acres and built a avocado orchard.
Interesting. And that was pretty early to get into the agriculture down in Southern California like that. Especially, most of that was all done. Citrus was really big, but getting into the avocados.
No, I'm not sure about the history. All I know is avocados in the Escondido Vista area were very big at that time. The ranch he did put together did grow both avocados and citrus. So citrus will handle cold weather better. And this 40 acres that he had was a sloping kind of a hillside. So he put citrus down low where frost was more likely and kept the avocados up higher where they would withstand cold weather.
Oh, there you go. Absolutely brilliant, like you said.
Yep.
So what were the earliest memories that you have of of life out there, I would imagine it was around the ranch. Did you guys live on the ranch?
Yes, we lived on the ranch. And the earliest memories I can remember is not only rabbit shooting with my 22,
Nice.
because we had lots of rabbits in those days, but also being able to get a driver's license at 14, and also driving tractors in the orchard, pulling a trailer to pick fruit and so on. So that was probably my first years of navigation with an automobile.
Okay. That's cool. And 14 years old to get a driver's license. Was that pretty standard then, or was that like an ag
No,
exempt?
that was a special license
Okay.
that people who were involved in that type of business needed to have somebody else help them to navigate some fruit and things to market. So I started driving at that age.
Okay. And along with going to school.
Oh yeah,
And
oh yeah.
how were you as a student?
Not very good. I mean,
Your
I
interests
I
were
was
elsewhere?
I was a C student, which obviously is middle of the road. I didn't really like studying very much, and because of the ranch and all, I just didn't take the opportunity to try to learn that much. I guess I don't know, but just like I say, I was basically an average student,
Okay.
and
That's all right. You seem to have other skills. And one of those, I take it you had a motorcycle very early in your age, correct?
well, I'm not sure about how early. I've been riding motorcycles for, I don't know. I can't even remember. It was so many years, but uh, I didn't have a motorcycles when I was that young. I didn't probably start getting motorcycles until I was, uh, in my mid 20s,
Oh, okay.
because I owned a motorcycle. I mean, a service station, and that along with jeeping, I did a tremendous amount of off-road jeeping. But motorcycling was also one of my interests. But in those days, dirt bikes weren't available, so we would take Yamahas and not Yamahas, because Yamaha had a dirt bike, but we would take motorcycles and adapt them into a dirt bike model by putting bigger tires on it and changing the exhaust system and so on and so forth. But the Triumph had a motorcycle called it a TR6, and we would take a TR6 and modify it and make a dirt bike out of it.
Very good. But
And
that
I
wasn't
used to
until your
love,
20s.
yeah, no, you're right. And
Okay.
I love to hill climb. So we spent a great deal. I had a group of friends who we all drove dirt bikes or modified dirt bikes, and we would go out hill climbing. So we loved to hill climb.
Did you ever take that into a professional level at all and enter any kind of hill climbs events or anything?
No, not really. No, I didn't.
Okay.
Why I didn't, I don't think I really had that much interest in it. We enjoyed just riding in the mountains. We lived in Southern California then, of course, and I would ride in the local mountains there. Just trail bike ride.
Okay. And then you said you owned a gas station. When did that happen? How old were you?
As soon as I got out of school, I graduated from Orange Coast Junior College, where I was the student body president,
Oh,
and then um, I, because of my jeeping and all, uh, the service station. As soon as I got out of college, I pretty much said that was enough. Junior college, that was enough college or schooling for me. So I had the opportunity to open up my very first service station. I was probably, I don't know, 21 years old,
okay.
20 to 21.
And you opened your first gas station, and then You ended up, that was a smaller station, and then you ended up going into a larger station. Is that correct?
Yes, yeah, I had the good fortune of being offered a large service station in Newport Beach on the Pacific Coast Highway that was not only a service station, but we had a automotive repair shop and also a full hand wash car wash. So it was and it was unfortunately 24 hours a day service station. So there was no downtime. In fact, I laughed because the doors had never been locked on the service station. So uh, it it was pretty unique. Unfortunately, being a part of a 24-hour service station, one December day, I got a phone call at midnight saying the employee had just been robbed and he quit. And so he was walking out the door. I said, well, please wait there until I get there. So at midnight, I went down to the service station, which was in Newport Beach, and took over the operation at that point and tried to find another, of course, nighttime. Hiring people 24 hours a day is a real challenge. And so finding people that would work these weird hours was very difficult.
What did it make it harder that you'd been robbed?
I'm sorry.
Did it make it harder to find somebody to work the night shift, seeing as your last employee had been robbed?
I don't remember that being a problem.
Okay. I just would imagine that, that wouldn't be something that you would advertise,
No,
especially
no, or tell.
or tell anybody. Yes. So you were there on the Pacific Coast Highway in Newport Beach and with a 24-hour station. That must have been a really nice location.
It's a very good location. In fact, we were the leading. In those days, it was called a Flying A. Flying A isn't even around anymore. But it was a Flying A service station, which eventually was bought out by Phillips 66. But we were the leading service station in that brand for a few years because being on the Coast Highway there and the corner of Balboa Boulevard, which went right down into the Newport Beach area, it was a very popular location.
Yeah, that's an awesome spot. And how long did you run the service station? And was it just one, or did you end up owning more?
No, no. I was only there, and I don't remember the exact years. You're testing almost a 90-year-old man on his memory, so uh, it's going to be difficult. But I don't
No
remember.
worries.
I'm going to guess it's probably 7 or 8 years I was there.
Okay. All right. And you'd mentioned about the Jeeping. When did you get your first Jeep?
Back in my very first service station,
Okay.
I was involved. In fact, I took an old Model A truck and put big tires and wheels on it so I could go out and play around in the back, what we call the back bay. It was an inlet area in Newport Beach. They used to call the back bay. But I took this old Model A I had and went out and played around in the dirt with it. But then it was obviously two-wheel drive, and so I was more interested in getting something more aggressive. So, in those days, anyway, I went and bought a military Jeep, the ones that were actually in the military, the Army, 19 what 40s or whatever,
Yeah, 41 through
and
45. Yep.
and they had, and in order to put a roll bar on it, which in those days was very unsophisticated, but and that Jeep had a mount underneath the body where they mounted a 50 caliber machine gun. And so I was able to adapt that mount to make a roll bar out of it. And so that was the extent of my roll bar, which was only a single roll bar, one bar over my head in the passenger seat with a brace that went down to that 50 caliber machine gun mount.
Oh, so basically you had the B pillar loop and then just one down bar?
Yep. Yep. No angle bars, nothing up around the windshield, you know. But I built this out of pipe. I welded it to. I was able to weld, so I'm welding this thing together, and I bought already pre-made bends for the corners, and used straight pipe for the other parts of it. So it's pretty rudimentary.
But it's a start.
Oh yeah,
And it
oh
and it
yeah,
was safer than not having anything, correct?
exactly, exactly.
And you you seem to be a leader. You were student body president. You got into you had a Jeep club, or you were part of a Jeep club, correct?
Yes.
And then running the gas station. So you were one of the A type personalities that we see in racing a lot.
Okay.
That's what it sounds like, at least. And what did you study while
Well,
you were in college?
oh, just business administration.
Okay, that makes sense as well. And the was it a Jeep club that you were involved in, or just a bunch of friends?
No, it was called the Orange County Four Wheelers,
Okay,
and it was a group of jeeping people out of the Orange County, California area. And I was fortunate enough to be the president of the Jeep Club also.
like I said, that Type A personality, perfect. And how did the transition into racing come about? Um, was that while you were with the gas station, correct?
Yeah, yeah. It was because of the Jeep Club.
Okay,
We competed in various events throughout the Southern California, more than that, the southern part of California. But we competed with people like the Hemet Jeep Club, which Rod Hall was very much a part of.
right.
In fact, Rod and I, who became very good friends, uh, competed against either a lot. And so we competed in those days, it was sand competition, or oh, they had some obstacle course competition. And so he and I, plus drag racing, yeah, drag racing, hill climbing, and obstacle course in those days. But most of it was done in the sand dunes somewhere, either in Glamis or out on the Pismo Beach area. So we were all involved in that kind of racing at that time.
Very good. And then you got involved. How did the first 1,000 come about?
Well, that's an interesting comment because Ed Perlman and Don Francisco uh, came to Bruce Myers and myself and said, we would like to meet you guys in a restaurant in Orange County, California, to talk about maybe putting together, because already Bruce had set some records in Baja for the fastest time, or a time. It wasn't the fastest time in those days. It was just making it in some kind of record time. So Bruce and I went and met with Ed Perlman, and we talked about how we could put that together. Along with, we also went out to his home. I don't remember what it was, out in the valley somewhere, to meet with him to try to formate um, a, a, a format for the 1000, which would be classes and organized event and so on and so forth. So that's pretty much uh, how I got involved in it. Was we actually were involved in the initial formation of the event itself.
And how did you become friends with Bruce Meyer?
Bruce was a customer of mine at my Newport Beach service station, and he knew that I was very involved in off-road racing as far as my Jeep is concerned. And he was in the process of initially building his first Myers Manx, or designing the body for it. And so he and I became quite good friends and involved. So he he thought, you know, Vic, you enjoy racing, so how would you like to drive my Meyer's Manx in maybe this first race that we were formatting at that time? Which I said, a Meyer's Manx? I said, two-wheel drive? So I was a little bit apprehensive, but then he and I went out to the Back Bay area we were talking about, which had a lot of open country in those days. And I took his car and we put it through some testing. I said, that thing is amazing as far as ability to navigate very, very unusual terrain. So I obviously decided, he said, well, Mangles would be your navigator, and we would love to have you drive the first Manx in 1967. So that's how that all started.
And that was the first Mexican 1000 and Perlman with Perlman
Yep,
at the helm. Okay.
yep, yep.
And when you said that Bruce had records on Peninsula Run records, that was there wasn't a racing organization doing that. It was just, or was it?
No, it was not. The very first record, I don't know how that all began, meaning who said, okay, I'm going to go down from California to La Paz fast. I don't know how that all came about, but I know that the motorcycles in those days had actually the fastest time. A couple by the name of Eakins brothers.
Bud, yes.
Uh, they actually were doing it because of Honda wanting to promote their motorcycles. So they hired the Eakins boys to take a Honda motorcycle and drive it from California, obviously to La Paz, and they set a time, and Bruce and his friend decided that they were going to beat that time. That's how it all started.
Okay. That makes sense. Man, all the names that you're talking about, it's just amazing. Um, what a golden era for off road.
Yep.
Just amazing. So let's talk about that first Mexican 1000. And you're with Ted Mangles, and he's navigating. You're in the Meyer's Manx, which is a Volkswagen powered fiberglass buggy on a Volkswagen chassis. Um, what was that like? I mean, goggles, a helmet, and eating dust.
It wasn't that bad. Because of my driving background, I drove pretty much 90% of the entire race. Uh, I finally when we finally reached the pavement at the bottom, a certain portion of the race was pavement into the finish line. I had finally reached my goal as far as uh, just being so tired that I could hardly keep awake. But anyway, because we've been racing for 20, what, 25 hours. So being off road, bouncing around on a two-rut road, dirt, and day and night for 24 hours, 25 hours was very tiring. But Mangles was amazing because he had the ability, not only had he been down there with Bruce setting their record in those days, but because he spoke Spanish and he was a very bright man, very, very intelligent. So he was a perfect navigator for me. So the combination worked out very well.
Excellent. And yeah, it was what I'm reading here is 27 hours and 38 minutes.
Yep.
That's not too bad. I can remember not too long ago, well, probably 10 years ago, there was a contest on Race Desert to try to figure out what was going to be the winning time on the 1000 for the cars and trucks. And
Right.
what I did is I took all the point-to-point races and got an average time and then did the math for the miles per hour and then got the exact mileage that race was going to be. Did it by that, and it ended up being like 24 hours and some odd minutes, if I remember correctly, or maybe it was the miles, the average speed. I don't remember what the contest was on Race Desert, but I ended up winning, and was
Wow.
only off by like 36 seconds or something like that. So something crazy.
Amazing.
But the time wasn't that much different. But we'll get into 1970 when you even did it faster. But that first 1,000, what I can't imagine what that first race must have been like with the variety of vehicles that showed up. Nothing was. I mean, everything was. I mean, I can imagine there was the two-wheel drive car like you guys drove. There was four-wheel drive cars and trucks. Lots of sedans. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah. It was, if you ever get a chance, I think been some movies or not movies, but clips showing the variety of vehicles that were on that event, including motorcycles. So it was really a hodgepodge of vehicles in that very first event. So it I can't even begin to tell you the biggest challenge I had during that event was going from racing all day and then going to night and adapting to the nighttime activity or the nighttime light. Fortunately, I had put on the Manx a landing light on the front middle of the hood. And so I was able to get some light from that light we had put on there. But the biggest challenge I had was I started hallucinating. I would see things alongside of the road that weren't there, like people standing and putting out their hand to see me. And of course, I'm in parts of the Baja in those days that were desolate. I mean, there were nothing out there. So what I was seeing was just rock piles across the road in front of me that weren't there. So that was part of my hardest, or my challenge.
Because in a point-to-point race like that, you don't have. It's not like you can stop and have a picnic. It's not like you can put your feet up and catch a nap for a couple of minutes. You're in a race.
Yeah. You're just trying to get there fastest and the best. So there was another Myers Manx in it, named with George Haddock. He died in an airplane crash, so a personal airplane crash. So he's no longer with us. George and I dueled it a lot because little things went wrong. I ran out of brake fluid, and so Mangles, because he was very bright, said, "Okay, we'll just put some drinking water in it." So I had no idea you could use drinking water for brake fluid, but the brake fluid had gone. I don't know where it went or whatever, but that was one of the things that he was able to tell me that we did that kept us running. And the other things in those days, Volkswagen motors were great, but they weren't very dust-proof or dirt-proof. And so we had problems in our distributor with the rear engine where all the dirt is, keeping the car running. So we would have to pull the cap off once in a while and clean the distributor out.
So at least you had a chance to. Did you guys carry food with you, or did you have pit stops organized? Just stopping at gas stations?
No pit stops.
No
gas stations. We were able to get, I guess Bruce organized some people who were supposed to be at certain locations that we could get gas. But there are times that we were on that race that there was no gas, and we were running low on gas. So again, Mangles, being able to speak Spanish, was able to get some locals on there that were able to give us some gas to keep going. But food, yeah, I had a bottle of tequila. That was my food.
Now we know why the hallucinations.
Yeah, no, that was in case we broke down.
Oh, okay.
If we broke down, I'm going to sit by the road and drink tequila.
I think that happens even nowadays.
Yep, yep.
Oh, that's awesome. And the hallucinations, I understand that. Having myself, I've not raced, but I've helped race teams, and even though I always say, okay, I'm going to get plenty of sleep the night before, we got this peninsula run going. I'm helping pit along the way, running communications for a team. You always think you're going to get time to rest, and you don't. And I'll catch a half an hour here nap, and I'll catch an hour here nap, and it never seems to happen. And I can remember one time my wife and I, by the time we got into La Paz, we thought that we were on a really twisty road on the edge of a cliff. And 3 days later, when we left La Paz, it was all flat, straight highway.
Well, yeah, it's the one thing you said that doesn't uh, jive with me is you said you try to get lots of sleep the night before a race like that. Never got rest before a race like that. I mean, I was awake thinking all night long about what we were going to do, how we're going to do it, so on and so forth. But rest the day before is impossible for
Agreed.
me.
I agree. So then the 1000 happens, you win that, and you guys go on to win. You had a pretty successful first couple of years there. I know that you went back in '68, but you broke down.
Yeah, I tried to put together a fancy looking Myers Toad with some custom wheels that I brought from a company called Johnny Speed and Chrome down in Southern California. And I was leading the event uh, up until about the 3/4 mark, and the rear wheel came undone. Just the center pulled out of the wheel itself. Just it was really a dumb thing for me to do, to try to put custom wheels on a vehicle we're going to go racing. I should have stayed with a stock Volkswagen wheel or something of just solid steel rather than this chrome looking thing. But I was more into looking looking good. So that was a dumb thing to do. So anyway, any anyway, the wheel came off. We we had we had what we call a mini spare, which was about a quarter the size of a standard wheel, and we threw that mini spare on there. But it was on the rear end, and unfortunately, in order to try to catch up with the leaders again, the difference of ratio between the little spare and the full size tire uh, tore the transmission apart, and so we barely limped into La Paz on that mini spare and wheel. So that was the problem we had that second year, and then the third year we had the Drino Miller car, the single seater, which again we were doing well. I was driving. I was probably a better driver than Drino was, and Drino was a much better mechanic than I was. So we decided that I would drive the first half to El Arco, and he would take over from there and finish up the race with it. So I got him the car in first place at El Arco, and he took off for the nighttime version, which was fine with me. Unfortunately, he had put on there on his car a lot of, if you ever see a Drino Miller car, it had a tremendous amount of lighting power, unlike the first years. But he had put a lot of lights on it, and he outdrove the batteries. And so I mean, he's down in Baja California somewhere with a dead car with no electricity. So I think he also spoke fluent Spanish. In fact, I guess maybe that's where he got the word Drino. But anyway, um, so he was able to wander off and find somebody with a tractor who came back and got him started. So he was able to at least finish the race. So That was the third year we raced.
Just too much lights, too much electrical draw.
Too much electrical draw.
And then you came back in 1970 with Drino again, correct?
Yeah. Yes.
And then at that time, you guys had the electrical issues worked out. Was that a single seat buggy as well?
Yes. Same car. He had done a little bit of modification to that car. He, I think, and I don't know because he and a gentleman by the name of San Havens were together in business at that time, and he lengthened that car, I think. And I'm not sure how he did it or what he did to do it, but he also put in a 6-speed transmission or 5-speed transmission, excuse me, and built the motor up a little bit stronger. So then we came back the fourth year um, and reset the record.
Yeah, because then you did it in 16 hours and 7 minutes. That's knocking almost 12 hours, 11 and a half hours off of the 67 run. That's pretty incredible.
Well, it tells you how much faster that car was. It was, that car would do easily 100 miles an hour, and the Manx would be lucky maybe doing 80 miles an hour. So um, that was a big difference in speed.
Okay. Yeah, I guess so. And again, you drove the early part and then Drino drove the evening.
Yes. Uh-huh.
So no more hallucinations.
No, no, no. I did lose a tire on that fourth run, a rear tire. I didn't lose it. Well, I did. It came apart. Fortunately, in those days, Goodyear made what we call the inner liner that you could put in a tire, and it was an inflatable section that would actually suspend the car, and so uh, that left rear. In fact, I was racing along, and something hit my helmet, and I thought, "What the hell hit my helmet?" And it's a piece of the tire came off and hit me in the back of the head, and so uh, the tire actually was supported with that what we call an inner liner, and I don't know if Goodyear still makes them or not. I don't know, but I don't know why we would continue to make them because now I don't know. It just fortunately we had that, and I was able to take the car into La Paz or into El Arco, and they had obviously another tire there for 'em.
Excellent. And then in the meantime, you had the opportunity to win 2 national 4-wheel drive Grand Prix. Was that
Yes.
in your Jeep?
Well, I drove for a lot of vehicles. Toyota came to me and wanted me to drive one of their new Toyota Land Cruisers. And so I competed in that. And then I also competed, I had a Jeep that I put a 4-cylinder Chevy motor in it with side draft Weber carburetors. It was very, very quick. And so I raced that one year. I raced the Toyota Land Cruiser one year, which I broke my nose in because the thing is so bloody heavy in the front end. I came over a jump and I planted the bumper into the ground and broke my nose. But yeah, those are the vehicles that pretty much were I was involved in at that time. And then of course the Mint race, we did that race and did very well there too.
And what did you race at the Mint?
The Drino car.
The Drino car. Okay. And after 1970, did you continue racing? I imagine you continue racing. I just don't. I hadn't found any research on any wins after that, or what you were racing. But did you continue racing?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
Those years, I had also become very involved in a large 700-acre motorcycle play or dirt bike playground, and that business was 7 days a week. We put on 150 events a year there, so that required me to be around work a lot of the time. So that really restricted my availability to go spend pre-run days and race days and whatever else is involved in racing. And so I spent pretty much those years running my business, which was called Saddleback Park.
Okay. And where was the saddle? I wasn't familiar with Saddleback. Where was that located at?
It was in Orange County,
Orange County. Okay.
and it was a place up by, well, I'll name a couple of things. It was Irvine Park and Irvine Lake. It was in Irvine, California, or above Irvine, California.
Okay.
And it was a place that Irvine Company had a lot of problems with um, people cutting fences and riding in. They have Irvine Company was huge. I mean, hundreds of thousands of acres in the Orange County area, which was obviously worth a ton of money in those days. But they were trying to find a way to treat the off-road motorcyclists so they would be able to go somewhere dedicated and do their thing. So between Bruce Myers, myself, and a gentleman by the name of Joe Parkhurst, we contacted the Irvine Company, and they decided that having a 700-acre parcel that was dedicated strictly, and it was kind of restricted by natural landscapes or natural surroundings, such as a road and a lake and a park. So it was pretty well nestled into this little area. So I was designated the operator, and we opened up our first gate and started getting people in. It became obviously very popular because putting on 150 events a year is not easy.
No, not at all. That's not a part-time job.
No, well, we didn't actually. I wasn't the sponsor or the person that put them on. We had promoters
That would come
in
in.
and yeah, come in and run various events.
But still, you had to have the park ready for them.
Oh
So,
yeah,
yeah, I can see that. Okay.
we had to have a lot of equipment there in order to prep various tracks to get ready for the next day's race. And so, in fact, a lot of those races were Saturday, and so Saturday afternoon late, we had to get out there and prepare the course for the next day.
Right. And then it was open for people to come out and ride and the rest of the week, or was it just open on weekends?
No, it was open 7 days a week,
Okay.
and we had because of the operation itself, we had a full-on medic on staff. We had a medical center on staff on property. I had my office there at the time, and we had a parts department there also. In fact, we went into renting motorcycles there for a number of years, which was pretty precarious because we had people who came in, and if you ever seen a novice on a dirt bike, and how sometimes they have a problem with where the throttle is or how far they can twist it,
Yes.
and so it presented a little bit of a problem for us, but it all turned out well. I mean, we did very well while we were there. I finally sold the park in 1970. I opened it up in '67, so I was there 13 years, but I finally ended up selling it in 1970.
Okay. And then you also organized or designed other off-road parks, is that correct?
Yeah, I because of my involvement in Saddleback Park, the state of California had what they call the Green Sticker Program, which was obviously set up for dirt bike guys to go off-roading and still ride on the street somewhat. But anyway, they came to me because of my background at Saddleback Park and said, we're trying to coordinate locations all over California. And actually, what happened was actually the United States um, but to build and design and lay out off-road vehicle parks. So they offered me a job as a consultant, and so I went to work for the state of California for 18 years.
Very nice. Very nice. And so you worked on like Hungry Valley, Carnegie, Hollister Hills, Prairie City. Those are some great parks.
Yep, yep. The biggest one was up in Hungry Valley, which was at the top of the Cone Pass. Um, that was 17,000 acres. And I was able to go in there and not only lay out a motocross course, but also lay out the entire trail structure of that entire park, which was massive. In fact, if you ever go to Hungry Valley, there's one trail there called Vic's Backpack, I think it's called, or something. But it went down from the top of a mountain down into a very steep gorge into a sand wash at the bottom.
Nice. Very good. I have been at Hungry Valley. I tried to put on a race there one time, and it we had it all organized and stuff, and there was a private property owner that still had a piece of property inside the park, and we had to
Really?
yeah, and um they had to have the access, and I guess it was property that was donated, but like they turned it over to the state, but they kept a piece of the they kept ownership of it for so many years, something like that. And the weekend that I wanted to do the race, the at the last minute the guy says, "Oh no, that's not going to work. I'm having a family reunion. I'm going to have people coming in and out of the property, so a race we couldn't make that work."
Was that going to be a motocross event or a cross country event?
No, it was a 4-wheel drive event.
Oh,
So it
okay.
was, yeah, it was part of. I used to run a series called Dirt Riot, and then I had Vora as well after Ed Robinson, and so I put on races, and that was one of the ones that I tried to put on there. So yeah, it didn't work out, but that
Okay.
happens.
Okay. Oh yeah, I know well.
And then you, besides the consulting work, you worked as a promoter as well. You organized other events around. I mean, I read here that you were involved with the Bug-ins.
I originated the bug-in.
Wow. I'm an
Yeah.
originally a Volkswagen guy.
Oh, well, a good friend of mine who you may know, Rich Kimball. Rich Kimball has been around the Volkswagen industry forever, and he worked for me at the time at Saddleback Park. I said, "Hey, Rich, what do you think of putting on an Orange County International Raceway?" It was established in those days, which is no longer there. It's all freeway and businesses now. But Orange County National Raceway had a beautiful uh, drag race course and had availability for other events at that location. So I said, "How about you and I getting together?" Because he had the Volkswagen. He was with a club at the time. I don't know what club it was, but I said we could, put together a thing. And I went to an artist friend of mine who designed not only the Saddleback Park logo, but I said I went to the friend. I said I need a logo that looks like a Volkswagen or kind of, I mean, this cartoon character. So he's the one that drew the very first Volkswagen logo, or it wasn't really a logo, it was a bug, is what it was, with big tires on it. He designed the logo, and we went to work on it. And uh, my wife at that time, or not wife at that time, my friend, and she had a magazine called the Dune Buggies magazine. Well, Dune Buggies was obviously uh, part of Volkswagen, and like Hot VWs
Right.
was part of it too. So uh, I got them to do the advertising, and we did the event, and it was it was a big event, a big deal. We put on a lot of events. I put on for 25 years that event. or 25 events, excuse me. We finally became so popular, we started doing 2 a year. But yeah, it was a big event. We did not only drag racing with Volkswagens, we had a show area where we did car shows. We had a queen contest where we had the ladies and the most fun event of all the events that I've put on at that time was I had what we called, I said, Volkswagen Motors, and I've been around Volkswagens a lot. I said, you can take the motor out of a Volkswagen pretty quick and change everything. So I said, how about let's getting Volkswagen of America down here? You give us a couple of judges, and let's have an engine pulling contest. And you're only able to use hand jacks and jack stands. Of course, we had jack stands because I didn't want anything to fall. And the only thing we did was disconnect the battery so there wouldn't be no fire or shorts or whatever. But the mechanics had to use hand tools, no electric, nothing battery powered. So what they did was they had all 67 Volkswagens lined up in a row. There was, I think, half a dozen of them. And the mechanics were two people only, were supposed to go over to the car, jack it up, put the jack stands under it, remove the motor, pull the motor back 6 feet, shove the motor back forward, and put it back in the car, and then hook up the battery, and then drive the car 10 feet. So that was the competition. You have no idea how fast the guys did the event in. I don't know, take a guess what you would think would be the time for pulling the motor, putting it back in, driving the car, and doing all that. What do you think is a quick time?
I would say that 10 minutes with two guys that were really rushing, 10 to 15 minutes that they should be able to do that.
Not even close.
Really?
3 minutes.
3 minutes. Wow. That is incredibly fast. I was hoping in 1975, 76 to go down to the Bug-In, and we didn't. The buddy of mine that who we were building a car, and we didn't have it was done. It was running. It was fast. It was set up for doing like Jim Cannon races but also it was really fast drag racing, and
sure,
we used to street drag it up in the San Francisco Bay Area up on El Camino Real, and we go cruising and stuff like that. And then he wanted to get it down there to the Bug-In, and he did not get it painted. And the car, all the fiberglass came in different, colors and stuff. And so the thing was probably 15 different colors. We'd popped all the glass out of it and had plexiglass windshields in it, windows, so that everything was super lightweight. We had to put 200 pounds of plate weight from like a weightlifting set in the front end to keep the front end on the ground in first and second gear. And
wow.
We were like, we're going to go down there. We're going to do great. And he decided that since it wasn't painted, that he wasn't going to go. And
too bad.
Yeah,
I
was really disappointed because I think we would have given Gene Berg a run for his money. I really do. But who knows?
Well, going back to that engine pulling, they had that motor out and ready to go back in less than a minute.
That's incredible. I thought I did pretty good one night. I was on my way into San Francisco and just past just past one of the exits going into San Francisco, and I sucked a valve or blew a hole in the top of the piston. And so I got hold of my dad, and I said, hey, on the way down, stop at Bug Foreman's, grab a new piston and cylinder setup. It's sitting there waiting for you. Grab my tow bar, come up, tow me home, and it was like 4 o'clock in the afternoon, 4:30, and by 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock that night, I was back out cruising on the El Camino with my
Wow.
friends, and I thought
Wow.
that was pretty fast.
That is impressive.
But the garage was set up for it, and I got it to where I was pretty good. I had a tire that I would just unbolt and pull it out, pull the engine out, let it drop onto the tire. Then I'd jack the car up and pull the engine all the way out onto a creeper,
Sure.
and then we'd throw it on the engine stand. But yeah,
Do you
it
know?
was
Do you remember the name Ron Fleming?
Ron Fleming. The name is familiar, yes.
Okay. Well, he was a big name along with I don't know, remember all those big name Volkswagen guys, but he was part of that whole group of Vol- top Volkswagen competition guys. He and Rich Kimball came up here 2 weeks ago to my little house in Gardnerville, and we had lunch together. So that was a real treat to back and see those days.
That's awesome. That is really great. I get through Gardnerville every once in a while. In fact, I'll probably be coming through there tomorrow on my
Oh,
way to Mound House. Interesting.
okay,
At some
sure,
point, I would like to stop and visit.
sure.
We'll make that happen. Going into ORMHOF, you got voted in 1978. That was like the first. I'm not sure if that was the first year or not. With Ed Perlman in charge of doing the inductions. Was that the first year? Do you remember?
I don't remember.
Okay.
Again, you're talking to a man that's obviously.
I understand. I'm like I said, I'm 65 and I can't remember everything. So yeah.
Yeah, no. You'll see that it gets worse when you get almost 90. So
Yeah, I call it beers and years.
yeah, unfortunately, what happens when I get this old, everybody that I palled around with, off-roaded with, are all gone.
Right.
I mean, Drino's gone. Um, Bruce Myers is gone. Um, so it's tough. Knowing a lot of good friends you had are gone.
Have you been to any of the ORMHOF inductions in the last couple of years, in the last, say, 10 or 15 years?
Yeah, I went to one, I don't know how many years ago it was, but it was probably 6, 7 years ago in Las Vegas.
Okay.
And I decided that the event is pretty much, well, there's a huge transition between off-road racing when I was starting it and getting involved in it to what it's like today. And it's hard to put the two together. It'd be like taking somebody who raced in the very first Indy 500 events and putting them together with people who race in the Indy 500 today. And the cars are kind of the same way.
True. Very true.
So it's not no. And the last, I mean, I get invitations all the time to go, but I don't have a. First of all, I don't like Las Vegas, and so and driving there is a good, 7, 8 hour drive for me, and I mean, you could stop somewhere, I guess, and stay overnight and then finish the race, finish the ride later. But I don't do that. It's just I don't travel much anymore.
Okay. Fair enough. And 1978 was the first year of inductions. I just
Okay.
found that out. Just looking through
Okay.
my notes real quick.
Okay.
So congratulations on that and being one of the originators of not only winning the first Mexican 1000, but also being the in that first induction class into the Hall of Fame. Well deserved.
Thank you.
And I'd like to say thank you so much for what you've done for the sport, not only for the off-road racing in those first 4 years of racing and winning, what you did for 4 years of racing like that, where you're, 4 years in the Mexican 1000, doing the Mint and the Grand Prix and pulling off that many wins is pretty phenomenal and quite a track record.
Thank you.
And with that, I'd like to say thank you so much for spending the time with us, and I've really appreciated it. And I do hope to give you a call maybe sometime this summer and come by and shake your hand and say hello.
Sounds good.
All right, Vic, thank you so much for spending the time, and you have a great rest of the day.
Thank you very much.
Okay, bye-bye. Well, that's another episode of Conversations with Big Rich. I'd like to thank you all for listening. If you could do us a favor and leave us a review on any podcast service that you happen to be listening on, or send us an email or a text message or a Facebook message, and let me know any ideas that you have, or if there's anybody that you have that you think would be a great guest, please forward the contact information to me so that we can try to get them on. And always remember, live life to the fullest. Enjoying life is a must. Follow your dreams and live life with all the gusto you can. Thank you.